Hello, today I'll be showing you how to customize your classrooms to best suit your students' needs. The first thing is making sure that you're in the correct classroom. So click on this drop down and select the classroom that you want to customize. Once you're in the classroom, click on the View Lessons button to view the list of lessons assigned to your classroom. Here, I want to edit the Giving Advice and Making Suggestions lesson, so I'll click on the Edit button next to it. In the lesson, you'll see a lot of different options that can be customized. So we're going to go over each of them one by one so that you have a better understanding of how to customize a lesson. The first thing is the name of the lesson. The name of the lesson has no impact on the content of the lesson. So you may set it to whatever you want to set it to. So, demo, for example. Moving on, we have the lesson format. The lesson format is essentially the format in which the lesson or activity is presented to the student. For more information, you can click on or hover over the icon next to it, and you'll be able to see the different formats that we support. We primarily support three formats: the conversation format, the lesson format, and then the drill format. The conversation format is used when you want a student to have a free-flowing conversation about a topic that they might already be familiar with. So, for example, a student learned a new concept and you want them to have a conversation about that concept. That is when you use the conversation mode. Then we have the lesson format. The lesson format is meant whenever you want to introduce a new concept to a student. So say, for example, I want to teach students some new grammar or some new vocabulary, or I want to introduce passive voice to them. That is when I will use the lesson format. Finally, we have the drill format. The drill format is essentially meant to assess a student's understanding of a concept. So it will ask students a set of repetitive questions, which includes fill in the blanks, true and false questions, and MCQ types options to best assess a student's understanding of a concept. Moving on, we have the lesson date. This is used when you want a lesson to start at a predetermined time in the future. So if your classroom has multiple lessons and you want to schedule the lessons to start on particular dates, you can use the date. You can use the date property. So if I click on it, you can see the different dates that you can schedule the lesson on. You can go further in the future, you can go back in the past, and then you can select any date you want the lesson to start on. Say I want the lesson to start on the 9th of March 2026, I can just select it. Once this is selected, the lesson will automatically start when the 9th of March hits. Moving on, we have the purpose of the lesson. The purpose of the lesson is essentially meant to describe what the learning objective of the lesson actually is. So here you can see the purpose of this lesson was that the student should be able to give advice and make suggestions, and to achieve that they should practice models for possibility and obligation and use conditionals to present scenarios. You can adjust this to whatever you want, and this is primarily how you'll be customizing the end goal or the achievable at the end of the lesson. Moving on, we have the student interaction mode. The student interaction mode describes how a student interacts with the tutor. So if I click on the button next to it, you'll be able to see the three formats that we currently support. This includes written messages and voice notes only, and then the phone call mode. They're all pretty self-explanatory, but a brief explanation of each would be: in written messages and voice notes, a student can send text messages and voice notes to the AI tutor. We use this for text-heavy content or text-heavy lessons where a student needs to learn new concepts or there's just a lot of text involved. Moving on, we have the voice notes only. In the voice notes only section, a student can only send voice notes. They cannot send text messages. This is great for when you want a student to practice their spoken English, or if you want them to practice the pronunciation of certain words. Finally, we have the phone call mode. In the phone call mode, the student can call the tutor, and then the tutor will have a real-time conversation with the student on a particular topic. This is great for when you want to assess the fluency of a student under pressure, or if you just want to see how they perform in real world exercises. Moving on, we have the key vocabulary. The key vocabulary is a set of vocabulary words that you want the student to be able to use in the lesson. So here I've here I've defined a bunch of different words or vocabulary that the student must use in their lesson in order to move forwards. Similarly, we have the key grammar. This is basically where you can define the kinds of grammar that the student should use in their lesson in order for the lesson to be marked as complete. Moving on, we have the lesson completion criteria. Here you can define the behavior that a student must show or prove in order to be able to complete the lesson. So as you can see, here the completion criteria for this particular lesson was that the student must successfully give advice for a specific problem. They must use at least 2 different models, and yet they must use a conditional sentence to present a scenario. Unless a student achieves this criteria, their lesson will not be complete and they will not be able to move on to the next lesson. Finally, we have 2 optional fields. You are not required to fill these out, and you may leave them empty. But these are here for some extra customization in case you need them. So the first one is any other instructions for Jinso. So this is just there to provide some additional context about the lesson or some particular behavior that you want the tutor to elicit. And then finally we have the reminder message. This is essentially the message that the students will receive as a reminder to complete the lessons. And that you should be finally, once you've made all the changes that you wanted to make, you can click on update lesson. And once you do that, your lesson should be updated with the fields that you just set. Now, a few words or a few answers to a few questions that teachers usually have. First of all, editing a lesson within your own classrooms will not have impact on the lessons in any other classrooms. You can think of lessons as being unique to every single classroom. So even if multiple classrooms have the same lessons, if you edit a lesson within one classroom, it will not impact the content of that lesson in the other classrooms that it is assigned to. Secondly, you may edit the lesson however you may want. There is no restriction as to how you can edit the lesson, so you may edit this however you want to best suit your students' needs, because at the end of the day, you are the teacher of your classroom and you have the most context on your students. So please feel free to adjust your lessons however you want to adjust them, because they will remain unique to your classrooms. With that, that's all you need to know in order to edit lessons on the Jinso dashboard. In case you have any questions, you can always reach out to our help desk by clicking on this contact team button at the bottom left corner. This will take you to a WhatsApp group where you can ask any questions that you might have. Thank you. We appreciate your time taking this video. Goodbye.